Great to be here. So I'm Kumi Thiruchelvam. I'm a deep tech entrepreneur operating mainly around Cambridge and London. Came to this country from my native Sri Lanka a long time ago and grew up in Ipswich, Suffolk during the Bobby Robson heyday of English Division 1 football, and then went to study medicine in Leeds actually in the late 80s, and also a strong footballing side in the early 90s. And then I joined a corporate that sponsored me when I was doing my electronics degree, and that was BT. I worked in BT International, working on their joint ventures around the world. Great lessons learned there in terms of career and management and leadership. Then I left to join the startup world about 20 odd years ago, and since then I've been a deep tech entrepreneur working in embedded software, semiconductors, cybersecurity, and currently in AI-led voice biometrics is my kind of day job. But I also do quite a few non-executive roles as well. So I came here this morning from Luton to the Institute of Directors in London, where the government launched its ChipStart UK program, which is UK's first semiconductor accelerator program run by Silicon Catalyst. If any of you in that world of deep tech, semiconductor and microelectronics, do come and talk to me later. Yeah, a product market fit. A lot depends on the sector you're in and the size and the stage of the company, I think. But let's start with ideation. You guys are in an academic institution, phenomenal institution that's lends itself quite nicely in different departments to ideas. And they could then generate a business. And I think anyone wishing to start a business as an entrepreneur would be wise to look at what your end goal is with that idea. Are you looking to start a business? Are you looking to do a spin out? Are you looking for peer adulation with your peers around the world? I think that's a really important aspect of ideation. I've worked in many different accelerators, venture builders, and accelerators around the world, where ideas have come from many different sources, actually. And so I think that's worth remembering. The second point is talking to customers early. I think Till mentioned it, and my third point actually is also related to that, which is product market fit. So when you're building a proposition, talk to customers on a regular basis, several times. Don't worry about steering away from your original vision of a product. Get to that minimum viable product, build out quite early, and minimum viable, MVP really means minimum, right? A lot of people I've seen where M means maximum, but we're really talking about minimum viable proposition, and iterate it multiple times. Iterate it many times. Up to the point then where you're looking at building a team, and then accelerating, pressing the gas pedal. Knowing when to press the gas pedal to scale your company is also a key point, actually. So as investors, we look at founders that look to raise money on a solid valuation for them, but also for rapid, when I always think about raising money when you can, not when you need to. So knowing when to accelerate, I think, is a key point. So those are the sort of broad areas I think it's worth remembering about. So I think research is a great area. Research into things that interest you. I think I look for entrepreneurs that have a passion in what they're doing. If they have a passion, they're probably researching global market dynamics in a particular sector, and that probably drives either an undergraduate or a postdoc degree. So I would look for things are a lot of climate change, a lot of green sustainability ideas out there. Will they generate a business or not? That's the sort of things that I'd be looking for. And in the past, the kind of things, and I've done a lot of startups that have shut down, right? So don't be scared of failing in startups. I think in Europe and UK especially, we do have a culture of blacklisting entrepreneurs that shut down businesses. But the very fact that you created a startup, I think, is a phenomenal achievement in itself. And the sort of things that Till was talking about. Yeah, as a manager, as a leader, as a CEO, you tend to do quite a lot of things. I've done like office management, restructuring facilities, organizing an office as a leader of a business. So don't worry about stooping too low in terms of when you're building a business. So large corporates are a good source. So academic institutions quite often work with large corporates, depending on the field that they're in. So look out for networking events like this, that you're able to meet and network with people. So large corporates are usually a good source of the wider go-to-market, really. So what we're talking to customers is really understanding your go-to-market and then engaging that community. I think governments in different parts of the world, including the UK, can help and support. And there's resources like social marketing platforms like LinkedIn, yeah. I mean, I joined it quite early on. So showing my age, I joined LinkedIn January 2003, if I remember rightly, when we were about 48,000. The CEO then of LinkedIn used to write to all of us with every time we met, we went past the milestones, 100,000, 200,000, 400,000. We're up to, I think, 400 million active subscribers on LinkedIn at the moment, which is why Microsoft paid excess of $20 billion for that company. So I think just touching on LinkedIn for a second, curated groups are a great way of networking and managing your audience. So setting up a curated group for your business, as well as having your own handle, allows you to generate multiple identities on a platform like LinkedIn. So you can have the company handle, you can have your own handle. Quite often I do that. I talk to myself on LinkedIn. So I'm the administrator of My Voice AI. So if you look at the posts on there, that's me. And then quite often I'll tag myself and have a different conversation back to myself. And that's just a way of driving engagement and visibility. So using the right usual, hashtags and handles is really important. You see it on Insta and Snap, but it's also important in the business world with LinkedIn. Engage your customers and don't be embarrassed. That's kind of, you're founding a business, you're checking and seeing whether something will hold with customers or not. So I always say, check on the person, check on the company, and is it relevant to your business or not? And is it representative of an anchor customer, teacher customer, that when you go to an investor, you can say, well, I've got a pipeline of very similar customers. I need some money to go and bag them as customers, contractual customers. So one is, I think, the cost of developing a proof of concept. So developing a thesis into a proof of concept and then testing it early with your intended customer base is a good way of generating data points. Okay, data points in terms of how easy is that your relevant customer able to put it into their own proof of concept? Do they have an addressable market for your product day one, or is it their customers? What I'm going through in my own startup currently is a conversational AI business. We're authenticating voice identity at the edge, not in the cloud. That's very much what I call before the product chasm. But as we start moving into a decentralized, privacy-led world, those kind of things become important. So we're now thinking about our customer's customer and how to generate pull for our customer, who perhaps may not be the right people to take our product into mass volume. And it's tough, right? So if you're way before the product chasm, I don't know whether any of you have read The Innovator's Dilemma and have a look at the product chasm they talk about there. It's very valid. It's quite often in ideation stage, you're working before the chasm. When you go past the chasm, you'll have 10 similar customers all competing with each other who want your product. That's when you kind of know you're on the path to scaling a company. So I think at a technical level, at an engineering level, I mean, having the core founding team, the engineering-led founders in whatever department engage with the engineering department of an organization and getting data points as to the challenges they've gone through integrating your product into their environment, they're good proof points. They're good proof points that goes probably beyond the mum test, as you called it. And also check with partners, multiple players. When resources allow, check with multiple sources on customer pull for what you're doing. Try and think about whether what you're doing is a science project or a research project. I come across a lot of entrepreneurs and founders who do things for maybe peer adulation, who perhaps don't, looking at the end goal, which is an exit for a business, right? It's an exit for a business for shareholders. And I think that's the sort of journey. Smart entrepreneurs eventually, I think someone earlier asked a question about the CEO. The CEO of a company, kind of the role changes during the lifestyle, the size of the business, and the role you do. And quite smart entrepreneurs at some point in their evolution from founding a business that let go of the reins. Or as Eric Schmidt at Google said, it's time for adult supervision. And then a few years later, he said it's not time for adult supervision when they're a very big company. Yeah, I mean, often in the investor world, we talk about smart capital. It means a lot of things to a lot of different people. I'm still on both sides at the moment. So I'm raising money for My Voice AI, but as well as probably investing in companies. I think what the government is doing with EIS and SCIS, which are investor-led, investor-friendly vehicles, are good for angel investors. So we do need to split that question, I think, into different stages, categories of investors. So I tend to operate in early stage businesses, angel investors, and there are groupings of good angel investors. They tend to act in herds, and they tend to co-invest with other venture capital organizations as well. Smart venture capital, particularly in tech and particularly in deep tech, will bring other investors to you. Great that you guys have gone out, or some of you have gone out to San Francisco. Silicon Valley is not the only source of capital on the planet, Ben. But UK tends to lead the way in terms of technology-led investments. And we're seeing venture itself changing, bringing in pension funds and bringing private equity. So actually the role of venture capital is changing in the UK currently. They're not looking for just a return. Some of the larger funds will ask you to return the fund, which I kind of smile at many times, because these are venture capital organizations that are investing in 100, 200 companies off a fund with the LPs in place, limited partners in place, and they're looking for one company to hit a home run. I just tend to think that they need to kind of just mellow out a bit and maybe look for 2 or 3 companies and not skew the odds to that one company. But we're still in the UK way ahead. I've done similar talks and I've worked with Scandinavians, I work with German, Italian venture funds. We're still in a good place in the UK in terms of driving entrepreneurship and driving venture capital for startups. So this again, you have to split it into the global. In China and in Silicon Valley, it's all about AI acceleration. So anything that will drive accelerator, neural network, neural processing units on a chip, very small chip that will drive AI inference. So we talk about inference models being smaller and smaller. Even Microsoft recently has been saying the cost of ChatGPT and evolving ChatGPT is becoming quite high. So I would think that large language models, moving to small language models, tiny ML, so tiny machine learning models, are now becoming, and that's the part of the ecosystem in semiconductors that's really driving venture money anyway. A lot of companies in that inference. There are companies also working on training. So chip companies that are looking at how data sets, algorithms can be used in a highly optimal way on chipsets. Lots of interesting areas there. In the UK, more of the compound semiconductor applications. So photonics, analog is seeing a lot of activity there than the purely digital CMOS. I think the digital CMOS world, we've been there. There's been a lot of acquisitions in that world. Obviously, some of you will know the story of ARM and how it kind of got acquired by a Japanese company in 2016 and then recently exited on the public markets through some strategic players. And there are lots of other areas, different CPU architectures, open source CPU architectures coming out in play at the moment. So it's a mixed bag. I think the mixed bag in terms of semiconductors. Definitely, I think investors are looking for different things, and investors, or the entrepreneurs and founders and management teams ought to be looking for different things. So when you're spinning out a business out of, say here in this case, out of academia, angels are a good source. Okay, I work a lot in Cambridge and London. University of Cambridge has a strong link to Cambridge Enterprise. So that's a very specific fund for spin-outs coming out of Cambridge. I expect Southampton eventually to have that kind of ecosystem in place as well. Northern Gritstone is a new spin-out early stage business focusing on spin-outs from Leeds, Manchester, Hull, Newcastle. So Duncan's doing a phenomenal job there at spinning out, businesses there. So I think eventually Southampton will have something or in similar to early stage, but working with angels, actually, angel groups. It's probably about 10 to 12 significant angel groups that continue to lead the way with early stage investing with academia spin-outs. And then, of course, as you start moving to Series A and you're attracting venture capital, you've gone past product market fit, you've proven it to yourself, you've proven it to your employees, and you're looking at scaling. So what you really be looking at there is, okay, I'm going to grow the sales and marketing, I'm going to drive engineering. If you're a deep tech business or a tech firm, you're probably filing a lot of patents. You're looking to monetize those patents. So those are the different things. And then coming to B and C, I'd work less in that area, but Series B, Series C, you're looking at what the eventual exit is likely to be. And the public markets are tough, so most likely it's going to end up being a trade sale. I'm just back on the back of an exit, back in May. And it was a couple of Loughborough University graduates I worked with putting electronics into mouth guards for concussion management and physiological management in the mouth. So it's like an internal Fitbit. We just sold that business to the 4th largest dental group in the world by accident. because they came on our scene for investment purposes. They said, look, we're interested in buying the company, actually, and driving the roadmap. So I've been in a lot of discussions with customers on exclusivity. And you're part of their roadmap and their scaling when they start talking exclusivity, i.e. they want to control your roadmap, i.e. they see benefit of what you're doing to their competitors. And that's when the commercial nous in your company comes through, because exclusivity usually costs. Or what I've done is flip product lines differently, call different product lines in order to give exclusivity on one product line and flip it down to another product line to allow you to scale the business. But that's one indicator. Companies that take your product and launch their own product really rapidly, I mean, that's pretty good. And that's what I was talking about earlier in terms of a teacher or anchor customer. Really trying to understand, is this a near-term, £50,000, £100,000 project, science project for them and you, or is this really representative of how you're going to scale the company? Quite often businesses scale revenue by being first mover, where you're not protecting anything, but you're first mover. So you're there getting your product out, you're getting revenue, there's no one else out there, and maybe you're just executing faster than anyone else. Quite often with deep tech, obviously patents is an important area, and intellectual property. So I always say, if you're really in something brand new, protect your invention. Yeah, so I've worked with a lot of patent attorneys. They're very expensive, without fail. I think, if anyone in the room is in a legal profession and wants to go into patent attorneys, I think that's a good profession, part of the law area. Patent attorneys, it's only going to get bigger and bigger as we move into, big tech, AI, protecting inventions. Litigation is a huge area. I mean, if you look at some of the wars between the semiconductor companies, or between Apple and Samsung, or right now between Qualcomm and ARM, you're talking huge money in those areas. So, but I would always try and encourage patent protection and IP ownership and IP assignment from the universities onto your company's books. Yeah, I tend to think about deep tech companies requiring a lot more capital than a tech company that's digitally transforming a business. So if you come out with a two-sided or multi-sided marketplace running a SaaS business that you can host on AWS or Amazon or AWS or Azure, I probably wouldn't call it deep tech. Okay, so if you run Zoom or Teams, I probably wouldn't call it deep tech. Okay, those businesses, revenue, monthly, their roadmap is feature enhancement. But if we're talking about inference, training, if we're talking about semiconductors, taking out a chip, working on a 6G IC that could be integrated with a multi-modem 5G, I would tend to typically call that deep tech. So patient capital is really important. The ability to survive the company through multiple financing rounds is really, really important. Being able to convince your shareholders and investors and employees that a return is on the horizon. It's much harder. But I'm seeing a lot more venture money going into that area than say, two-sided marketplaces, which is basically what is a SaaS business model. All right, if you could be able to transform an existing business, QuickBooks, Intuit, Xero, all these are broadly technology businesses that transform an accountant's life or a lawyer's life, right? So they are digital transformation businesses, which I call in the technology bucket, and deep tech tends to be something a lot more complex, probably IP and patent heavy as well. If they've got entrepreneurship within them, I think they will find their needs. It's not for everyone. I think you asked the question about graduates going into highly paid jobs in a corporate, or taking the risk and foregoing salaries, foregoing other material gains to really drive your passion. So I think there's a strong correlation, I think, between entrepreneurship and philanthropy even, actually. You're giving up other things. So what I would say is keep trying, keep iterating, keep ideating, and keep talking to as many people as you can about your ideas, and don't stop. Yeah, well, I mean, quite often what we talk about is blended finance, where a lot of early stage deep tech businesses are going for, say, a grant from Innovate UK and a fundraise with an angel group. So it's for investors, it's all about de-risking. And if they see a public sector financing body like Innovate UK putting money in, then they're likely to go in because it de-risks it for them. So at an early stage investor, the reason why quite often angels ask founders for 30% of a business raising $1 million or $2 million is about risk. is about managing and owning risk, knowing angels will be diluted on subsequent venture rounds, right? And that's the reason why they'll ask for that level. But don't ignore the Innovate UK. I'm glad to see that we're now also, as the UK, associated again with Horizon 2020. I was part of the original Horizon 2020. It's called Horizon Europe now. Horizon Europe. I'm glad we're associated now. With that, that's about 15 billion of innovation financing within the European member states. Even though we're technically out of the European Union, we are associated with Horizon, and I would strongly encourage folks to look at the European Innovation Council, EIC. They do a number of different innovation-led grants that can be substantial. So one of my previous startups, we raised in excess of 5 million sterling with EIC. Yeah, hopefully the cohort, it's a free advert for your cohort here, the cohort goes through a lot of that product market fit, go to market, engaging with customers, wargaming, as we say, in terms of being devil's advocate, getting that and tuning that. I think that sort of thing helps in a safe environment. LinkedIn necessarily is not the great place to find your original customers or define your go-to-market. It's a social networking platform, it's a very good business community. It doesn't really operate in China, okay? And yeah, contrary to popular belief, you can still do business in China and make a lot of returns. So there are other platforms in China to access clients in that part of the world. I think you have to just practice your pitch, really, to be honest with you, and make sure your commercial side of the business has got experience. Passion, confidence, resilience is probably a much used word today, in all sorts of scenarios actually, especially when you think about mental health scenarios as well. Resilience is an oft used term. So those are some of the qualities I think, and I think to convey, so communication really, conveying your idea in a term that sometimes you have to be a chameleon actually as an entrepreneur, which is, depending on the audience, you may need to tweak your message to an investor, to an employee, to a customer.